Hello, Aaron Kubitz, personal trainer at Functional Aesthetics EC. We're helping average guys perform better inside and outside the gym. In today's video, I'm going to be demonstrating a sort of HIIT workout or a hybrid athlete sort of style of training. And I'm going to be also talking a little bit about the benefits of why you would want to do this sort of training. So in the past, or typically when people work out, they will either do their strength training and then do their cardio after the workout, or they will pair them on separate days. But there are actually instances when it can be beneficial to perform the cardio and the strength training together in the same workout, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. So if your primary goal is to build muscle and strength, you want to be strength training a minimum of 2 days a week, preferably between 3 and 4 days a week, and you want to be doing your cardiovascular exercise on a separate day, or at least a little bit removed from the strength training. The reason being is that if you do the strength training with the cardiovascular exercise with your strength training, the cardio is going to tire you out a little bit, and so number one, you're not going to be able to put as much energy into the strength training, so thereby not being able to induce a hypertrophic or strength sort of effect from the workout. And you're also going to be burning up a lot of calories in the process that could be used for the growth and repair of those muscles after the workout. Now, this is more important the more lean you get. If you have a lot of body fat, so if you are 15% body fat or above, it might not be quite as important with this principle. The leaner you get, the more careful you have to be about how you're pairing these exercises together as far as from that hypertrophy aspect with the calories. The previous point about it decreasing workout intensity is still valid across the board. Now, when it comes to workout design, you have your powerlifting, bodybuilding, and also power style of workouts, which include things like Olympic lifting, sprinting, jumping, box jumps, the rower machine, things of kettlebells, things of that nature, right? Where you're moving a moderate to lightweight very rapidly for a short duration, short period of time, right? And these kind of exercises are not only great for helping you to build muscle, but they also help to release fat from the fat cells by increasing levels of your adrenaline, right? Noradrenaline and so epinephrine, norepinephrine, and stuff like that, as well as human growth hormone and testosterone. So you ramp all these hormones up, and it's also increasing, so basically, which helps to release the fat, particularly visceral fat. So there's a lot of talk about the detrimental effects of having visceral fat, or the fat that's around your internal organs, right? When it comes to the negative health benefits or negative health consequences of having that. Now, the good news is, though, that visceral fat is actually the easiest kind of fat to lose. It is the last fat to be deposited on the body, but it is also the first to be burned, and the most easy to be burned with exercise. So when you're gaining body fat, typically you'll lose, the definition of your abs, you'll lose, definition in your muscles, your triceps and stuff like that. You're going to lose that first, and then if you continue to gain fat, it starts getting packed in around the viscera. Now, another time when that can happen is if you have a super high stress job and stuff like that, and you're not adequately dealing with that, well, then it can cause some metabolic issues where you can, irregardless of that, start packing more around the viscera. The other thing is excessive alcohol consumption can do that as well. But now, when you want to go and lose that visceral fat, though, it's actually easier to lose than the subcutaneous fat covering your abs, right? And actually, if you have a little bit covering up your abs and stuff, that's actually not too healthy. From an aesthetic standpoint, having visible abs, having a little bit of muscle definition and stuff can actually look a little bit better. It might slightly increase athletic performance to a degree, as long as you're not dieting so hard that you don't have enough calories in the tank or energy in the tank to perform well. But if you can decrease total body weight, particularly for like endurance events and stuff like that, it can be beneficial for that subcutaneous fat as well. But what happens when you are doing your with the visceral fat, and why it's so susceptible to be burned with high intensity exercise, so like your powerlifting, lifting the heavy weights, doing Olympic lifting, sprinting, jumping, all these higher intensity forms of exercise, is because this viscera has a high level of blood flow, right, to it. So there's a couple things that are required for fat to be burned in the body. So it has to be released from the fat cell first and foremost, then it has to be transported to a muscle, so it has to have a transport mechanism, and then it has to have a way of entry into the muscle cell to be burned, right? And so the first step of that is releasing it, right? So the high intensity exercise is releasing it, but then the viscera, or the fat that's around all your internal organs, there's a lot of blood flow there as well. So that's the transport mechanism. So when you're releasing that fat from all this high intensity exercise, the fatty acids then get into the bloodstream, and then they can be carried throughout the body into the working muscles to be used. Now the problem is, just doing the high intensity exercise isn't necessarily going to cause the fat to be burned. It gets released, right? But this is where the cardiovascular exercise comes in and can help you drop even more body fat, okay? So you're doing this high intensity exercise, it releases the body fat, and then when you do intervals of low intensity training in between that, so like either jogging, walking, getting on a cycling machine, or doing the rowing machine, kind of like how they do in like CrossFit workouts and stuff, it helps to mop up all that fatty acids that are now flowing around in the bloodstream. And then also, both the high intensity exercise and the aerobic endurance training increase levels of insulin sensitivity, which is how that fat and calories actually get into the muscle cell to be burned. You know, and this is why sometimes people can eat a little bit more junky diet if they're in super good shape, because their insulin sensitivity is so high that it's less likely. So the leaner you are and the higher your insulin sensitivity is, you are more likely to build muscle from added excess calories than to have it deposited as fat. So you can get away with a little bit of dietary indiscretions. Although I do not recommend it, I still recommend having the base of your diet being solid, good quality foods. And then, you know, if you want to have a little snack or something like that, or if you just can't fit in that volume of food from whole, you know, food sources, and you need extra calories because you're doing an insane amount of working out, you know, you want to do an Ironman triathlon or something, then maybe you can add in some of those more processed foods on top of it just for extra calories to burn, okay? All right, so hopefully I've got you interested in the benefits of combining strength training with cardiovascular exercise when it comes to fat loss, right? So if your primary goal is to build more muscle and more strength, it is better to do strength training by itself and then have cardio on a separate day or later on in the day, okay? But if your main goal is to lose body fat while retaining or even slightly increasing lean muscle and strength at the same time, which is definitely possible, it's not optimal for maximal strength and maximal muscle growth. As you can see from, you know, the world's strongest man competitions, these guys, none of them are very ripped, right? They're all big and stuff like that because it's not optimal for that, right? But most people don't want to be the world's strongest man. They want to look like, you know, Sylvester Stallone in Rambo, or, you know, maybe even a little less ripped than that. They want to look, you know, good with their shirt off. They want to look athletic, maybe have, you know, visible abs, a little bit of definition and stuff, and that's what most people are aiming for. And this is an actually incredible way to achieve that sort of physique, okay? So if you decide to do that, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do it the traditional way by doing your strength training and then doing some cardio afterwards. And what I would recommend is doing the high intensity interval training, right? So maybe you're doing, you know, your squat day or something like that. So you're doing some squats and then you get done and you go and do some like intervals on the bike, really sprint intervals on the bike, or you go do some actual sprints. You can do some box jumps, something like that, right? And then maybe do some walking to cool down after that, right? Now the other option, and this is the option the method that I'm going to be demonstrating later on in this video, is where you do the heavy compound lifting, and then you combine that with intervals of active recovery at a low intensity cardiovascular exercise. You don't want to be doing like the high intensity sprint training because that'll be detracting from your actual lifting, right? So rather than just, you know, standing around or sitting down, they've actually shown in research that you actually recover faster and perform better in subsequent sets if you do some active recovery. So either walking around, laps around the gym in between sets, or just hopping on a stationary bike like I'm going to be doing in this video, or you can use a kettlebell or something like that to or even doing some jumping jacks or jump some rope or something like that. Something that's not going to be too demanding, right? You're not going to be too out of breath. It's going to help you actually to recover your breath after, say, doing some heavy squats, heavy deadlifting, or things of that nature, and just going back and forth like that. And that's another good method to do it, right? The other method could be where you train in the morning and then you train in the evening. And this would be if you're a hybrid athlete who wants to, say, still be putting up like numbers like you're a power lifter, and then also working on maybe getting like a sub 5-minute mile, or getting down to a 5-minute mile, or even running half marathon distances or stuff like that, or even longer. And you'd want to kind of split them up. And maybe in some subsequent videos I'll be talking about the best ways to design your workout if that is your goal, to be very good at like powerlifting exercises, and then also a good endurance athlete at the same time. So without further ado, I'll get into the demonstration part of this video where you can kind of observe some of the training, how I actually put this all together, and then I will see you on the flip side of the video.
Spread my wings and let go. Something stirring in my soul. I feel it again, feel it again, feel it again, feel it again. Unlock the cage and free my heart. This is where the journey starts. Now it begins, now it begins, now it begins, now it begins. This is gonna be a good day. Take a road that goes nowhere. I'm ready to live, ready to live, ready to live, ready to live. Like a dove I fly away. Now's the time, today's the day. Now it begins, now it begins, now it begins, now it begins. This is gonna be a good day.
Alright guys, that concludes the video. Hopefully you found it intriguing, informative, maybe gives you some better insights into how to structure a more effective fat burning workout protocol. One other thing that I would like to add in here on the nutrition end of things is that it's also important what your nutrition is. Everybody talks about nutrition, right? But simply eating a healthy diet and exercising is not enough to achieve that fitness model looking body, right? Because you want to be eating a healthy diet when you're trying to build mass and you want to be eating a healthy diet when you're trying to cut down and lose fat. And so the difference being is that when you're building more mass, you're eating more of everything, right? So aiming for about 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight, maybe about half a gram of fat per pound of lean body weight. And then the rest of your calories, which could be, increasing your calories by about 20%, but the rest of your allotted calories for the day can come from carbohydrates. And I would recommend like a mix of fruits, vegetables, and starchy carbohydrates just for overall health, right? And maybe when you're dieting down, you're going to be increasing the number of non-starchy carbohydrates slightly, and then decreasing starches and fruits, and then keeping your protein and your fat constant while maybe even slightly increasing your protein content, right? So when you're doing these this style of workout to help you lose body fat, you want to be, again, focus on those fats, proteins, vegetables, get plenty of water, get your electrolytes, right? And then when you're doing these workouts, you're going to be essentially creating that calorie deficit, but at the same time stimulating the muscles so that you're not losing your muscle mass. Because this is actually a big problem for a lot of people when they decide they want to go and lose body fat, right? So they go out and they start doing a lot of running, or they start doing a lot of biking, which in fact, biking is a little bit better than running because biking tends to build up your quadricep muscles and stuff like that. But your upper body, if you're not training that, your upper body can shrink a little bit and stuff, as evidenced by Tour de France participants, right? But they'll go out and they'll do a bunch of cardiovascular exercise. That can be biking, running, walking. Nothing wrong with those things, but by themselves, you're going to lose body fat, lose muscle, all at the same time, especially if you're in a calorie deficit. So by stimulating that hypertrophy response, or the building of the muscle, by doing the strength training and having that as the meat and potatoes of the workout, and then having the cardiovascular exercise in between to kind of mop up the extra calories as they're being released and burned, right? And then because you're prioritizing fat and protein, you're naturally creating a deficit because you're filling yourself up with the foods that are not going to stimulate your appetite as much, right? And thus making it easier to stay in a calorie deficit. And they're also going to suppress insulin production and support lean muscle mass. So you're not going to have as much room to eat more carbohydrates, right? And so your body's not going to have as much fuel to burn during the workout, and thus it's going to start burning more body fat versus just burning carbohydrates for fuel, which would be the main goal if you're trying to just build more muscle mass or perform at an optimal level and go and run like a marathon, do an Ironman triathlon. Then the primary goal is not necessarily losing body fat, but more just having the fuel to get through that workout, okay? So that's also an important thing here. Now, when you're doing the intervals, right, the goal is not to, sprint as hard as you can on the bike as it would be a high intensity interval training. You got to think about these intervals on the bike, or when you're doing some running or rowing or walking around the gym. It's more to kind of help the body recover faster. So keep that in mind when you're doing the intervals on the bike. So as you hop on the bike and you start pedaling and stuff like that, and maybe at first as you're recovering your breath from doing the heavier lifting or the anaerobic type activity, you got to go at a low intensity. And then as you start to recover your breath, you can start ratcheting up the intensity on the bike. And then as you start to kind of like hit like a rhythm and stuff, and you've kind of recovered yourself a bit, you can just hop off the bike, go back, do your next set of lifting, and continue on with your workout. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video and you learned something new today. If you liked the video, hit that like button in the lower right hand corner of the screen. If you'd like to see more content related to workout design, both for building muscle, losing fat, athletic performance, and then also nutrition for all of those 3 different concepts. And then perhaps most importantly, information regarding how to prevent injuries in your athletic journey. And then also, inevitably, at some point, you're probably going to get injured. So how do you work around those injuries and get over them to continue progressing in your workout? If any of that stuff sounds intriguing to you, interesting, or valuable to you and your particular fitness goals, then definitely go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you all next time for more health and fitness related information. Thanks guys for watching.